selected pointers for meditation on the nature of the Absolute. I invite you to open your mind, let go of your preconceptions, and listen closely. At the top of the tree of life, there are three vast expansive spaces which we call the Absolute. In Hebrew, it is called the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof Or. In Sanskrit, it is also called Śūnyatā, nothingness, Brahma, etc. That is the root or state of being of all things. It is the absolute essence of all things. The inherent nature of everything that exists is emptiness. It is a type of void, but it is not nothing. It is a void of characteristics, void of definition, void of identity. It is void of measurement of heat, cold, and temperature. It is void of concept, yet it is a type of beingness beyond what we can conceptualize. The understanding of Śūnyatā, or the Absolute, cannot be reached by the intellect. That is impossible. In order to comprehend the nature of the Absolute, or existence itself, it is only possible to do that with an awakened consciousness, to perceive it for oneself. And to reach that type of perception, you have to become liberated from anything that binds you to your deluded perception, your sense of self, your sense that your body is you, your name, your thoughts, your desires, your longings, your fears. Everything has to be abandoned. You retreat back into the core, the innermost part that makes you a creature, your beingness, which is a form of pure perception that is absolutely unconditioned and free from any form of any kind of limitation. And from that perspective, you can then see the Absolute. The Master Samael on Weor said, "The absolute abstract space, the universal spirit of life, is absolute happiness, supreme peace, and abundance." The Absolute is life free in its motion. It is the supreme reality, the abstract space that only expresses itself as absolute abstract motion, happiness without limits, complete omniscience. The Absolute is uncreated light and perfect plenitude, absolute happiness, life free in its motion, life without conditions, without limits. Gods and humans are submitted to the suffering of conditioned life. Notwithstanding, in the Absolute, we go beyond karma and the gods, beyond the law. The mind and the individual consciousness are only good for mortifying our lives. In the Absolute, we do not have an individual mind or an individual consciousness. There, we are the unconditioned, free, and absolutely happy being. The Absolute is life free in its movement, without conditions, limitless, without the mortifying fear of the law, life beyond spirit and matter, beyond karma and suffering, beyond thought, word, and action, beyond silence and sound, beyond forms. The Absolute is abstract, absolute space, abstract, absolute movement, absolute freedom, without conditions, without restrictions, absolute omniscience, and absolute happiness. The Absolute is unconditioned. It is not bound by karma, meaning it is a pure state of being that is the absolute state of happiness, a state of ecstasy, the likes of which we cannot even imagine, because it is not based on any kind of sensation. It is not based on physical sensation, emotional sensation, or mental sensation. It is a state of existence that is pure, unconditioned, and unlimited. It is the purity of the point of view of God, divinity. In that state of being, there is no pain, no karma, no limitation, yet there is absolute knowledge. Let me tell you something. The knowledge of reality, the Absolute, and the experience of it is terrifying to the ego, to the personality, and to our sense of self. If everything is emerging from the Absolute, which is nothingness, and is the root of all things, then who am I? What of me is real? Especially if during my day-to-day life I am constantly tripping over my own feet and hurting myself all of the time and hurting people around me all of the time. Who is that? Who is acting? Who is thinking? Who is feeling? In each activity, in each moment, regardless of what is happening outside or inside, we need to maintain consistent mindfulness, consistent awareness, persistent endeavor to always maintain that watchful point of view, whether things are peaceful or whether things are agitated. In doing so, we are confronted with many different phenomena that can be somewhat bewildering. Meditation is the critical practice within which we put ourselves in a state of calm in order to have an active consciousness, which can actively perceive the true nature of the mind. In this state of consciousness, there is passivity of the body, there is passivity of thought, passivity of emotion, and passivity of sensation, within the midst of which must be the activity of awareness, and that state can only arise through our own cultivation of it. In the state of meditation, actual meditation, not mere concentration, the goal or the purpose is to present ourselves with the true nature of our experience. So long as our mind is distracted and bouncing between all the different surging elements that arise from moment to moment, we cannot maintain a consistent, perceptive point of view that can penetrate into the true nature of any given thing. So we do all the concentration practices and all the other activities to cultivate that state of rest, so that within that place we can then turn back and look into the mind itself, look into the consciousness itself. Some of us may have tasted this or experienced it to some degree. The following text is related to that experience of having enough stability to actually perceive how thoughts arise, how they are sustained, and how they are dispersed or how they dissolve. So reflect and look into yourself now and observe how every given element, whether from inside or outside, has this process of arising and passing, and look to that. The following is the introduction to the means of experiencing this single nature of mind through the application of 3 considerations. Recognize that past thoughts are traceless, clear, and empty. Second, recognize that future thoughts are unproduced and fresh. And third, recognize that the present moment abides naturally and is unconstructed. When this ordinary, momentary consciousness is examined nakedly and directly by oneself, upon examination, it is a radiant awareness which is free from the presence of an observer, manifestly stark and clear, completely empty and uncreated in all respects, lucid without duality of radiance and emptiness. Not permanent, for it is lacking inherent existence in all respects. Not a mere nothingness, for it is radiant and clear. Not a single entity, for it is clearly perceptible as a multiplicity. Yet not existing inherently as a multiplicity, for it is indivisible and of a single savour. This intrinsic awareness, which is not extraneously derived, is itself the genuine introduction to the abiding nature of all things. For in this intrinsic awareness, the 3 Buddha bodies are inseparable and fully present as one. The ultimate point of this is to be able to see the nature of that awareness itself, to see the nature of that mind in itself as it exists, without any artifice, without any bottle, without any filter. The arrival of this experience can only occur when we are willing to give up, renounce, to walk away from all the things that distract us all the rest of the time. And here is the problem: we don't want to. By some strange magic, we love to be distracted. By some strange phenomenon, we enjoy it when we suffer. Otherwise, if we truly do not enjoy it, why do we continue to perpetuate our suffering. You see, the Absolute, the Void, is pure awareness. Unconditioned, it is cognizance, beyond even the level of what we would call a God. We call it the Absolute because it is the ultimate root of everything, even the gods, even universes, and that is inside of us, not outside. That level of mind is inside of you, not outside of you, and you will not find it tomorrow, and you will not find it in the past. You can only find it right now, in the moment. The only way to find it is to disengage from the cycle, which is a psychological process, to disengage yourself from the wheel of repetition, which is inside of your mind, your heart, your body. So let us do that right now. Be aware of being in the body. Relax and observe. We begin always with observing ourselves. We are the subject of our observation, so we observe ourselves. We become aware of being here and now. We also observe what is around us, our environment. We look at objects. We just look to see what is there, to not make assumptions, to not project anything, to not label anything, but merely to look. To look and recognize everything you can perceive right now, without adding anything, without taking anything away. Just look, listen, feel. Be sensitive and receptive to all the information that is coming in through your 5 senses. Your 5 physical senses and the mind, consciousness. Be receptive to all of that information, all at the same time, without thinking, reacting, analyzing, comparing, judging, or evaluating. It is as simple as that. For us, it is not simple, because the mind is very habitual. The mind wants to keep repeating thinking and feeling and wondering and questioning and doubting, and when it does that, disengage. Let it do whatever it is doing. Do not let it take you. It is like a current of a river. Let it flow past. is as if you are just watching a cloud in the sky. But instead of watching a cloud, you are watching the room that you are in, and you are watching your mind. You see that everything is slowly changing, or quickly changing, but you do not need to get involved or get distracted. You simply watch. This simple awareness, uncontrived, unconditioned, is the only gateway to liberation from suffering. There is no other door. That door is here, being here and now, observing always. That is the door to being free from suffering. That is the door to real knowledge, awareness, consciousness, cognizance. Let us also be aware of everything in our environment. For this, you may need to start using a little bit of your imagination. Expand your awareness out. Become aware of everything you can. Not only yourself in whatever posture you have, however you feel, intellectually or emotionally or physically. Begin to expand out and perceive everything that you can perceive. The reality, the room you are in, the sounds you hear, the things you see, what you feel on your body. Expand that awareness. This is the purpose of these teachings. It is to expand our awareness, to break free of that condition of only being aware of our selfish habits, and to begin to become aware of what is actually happening inside and outside, but mostly inside. Now, with a little bit of imagination, expand that awareness further, let us say to a city block. You, more or less, must have some idea of where you are and what is in the area. So expand that awareness out to what you saw before you arrived to where you are. Let us say you came to a classroom or a room in your house. What is in the environment outside of that? Be aware of yourself in relation to that. There is a lot going on in that space. 100 meters from you in a circle, all the way around you. What is there? What is going on? Where are you? How important are you in that perspective? Less important than when you are only focused on yourself. So let us expand that further. Imagine the city that you are in. Imagine all the people, all the animals, all the plants, the insects, the microbes, everything. Expand that further to the country, to the millions of people, all of whom are not aware of you at all, and do not care about you at all. They only care about their own desires, their own sufferings, and their own cravings. They are ignorant. They are suffering. Now, become aware that this whole planet is like that. Billions of humanoids who are in that state now that you were just in a few minutes ago. But now you are trying to break free of that by expanding your awareness. But the other 6 or 7 billion people are not. Be aware of that. Be aware that you are only one amongst an immense crowd, no different from anyone else. No better, no worse. Expand that more. This planet is not that big. There are other planets here. There are other solar systems. There are other galaxies. Do you feel small? Can you conceptualize for a moment how many beings exist? The mind breaks with the effort. It is too immense, and we are too insignificant, and we do not like to think that. We want to feel important. We want to feel as though we are the center of the universe, but the fact is, we are not. We are only one of an uncountable number of beings, many of them more developed than us, many less developed than us. Many of them more developed than us, many less developed than us. Very few have escaped the wheel, but it is possible. This exercise should bring up a sense of awe, and also a powerful feeling of compassion for the uncountable suffering beings. We should feel love. If this simple exercise brought a new sense of awareness or feeling, then remember, if a moment of mere awareness can change how you feel, imagine what is possible if you sustain that awareness. This is why in Gnosis and in other traditions, the emphasis is placed so strongly on paying attention. This is not merely a superficial exercise. It is not merely something interesting. It is completely essential. Even if we have been in the teaching or studying this material for a long time, we are not done. We are only done when suffering has been eradicated, when our own ego is no longer there. Then we are done. Until that time, we are all equals, brothers and sisters, friends in the house of Aquarius.